Looks like we're on, dear.
Oh my gosh, the chat already. I'm was not ready. We got to roll this intro though.
Let's do it.
All right.
We don't really know where the world is gonna go. But now everybody knows that you can't stop for too long. Got to keep. But now everybody knows. Got to keep.
You don't have to be retired to receive tax-free income. The problem is the vehicles that we've been conditioned to believe to help get us there were never designed to produce income.
Got to keep on. What you want to be going, you will see.
All ideas.
It's your destiny, be in harmony. We were never meant to be apart. What you want to be going, you will see. You can have everything you want. It's your destiny, be in harmony.
If you had a machine in your garage and all you had to do was put a quarter in it and it printed out $100. Put a quarter in it, printed out $100. Would you ever stop that machine from running?
But now everybody knows.
So what if you use that job that you hate as leverage to fill your machine so they can create income for you, so you don't have to worry about income?
Really know where the world is gonna go. But now everybody knows that you can't stop for too long. Got to keep going.
Okay. We're back officially. Nathan, man, he's making me laugh in there. Well, welcome back, everyone. We're kind of wrapping up our velocity banking series, and really what we're talking about is leverage. So, tonight we are diving into a crucial topic that many velocity banking enthusiasts and promoters often misunderstand. Well, I said it just a second ago, it's the power of leverage. While velocity banking is widely known for its effectiveness in debt reduction, its true strength lies in its potential for wealth creation. We talk about this here all the time. One of the biggest misconceptions is that velocity banking is only about eliminating debt, and many promoters restrict the concept of leverage when it comes to life insurance, particularly whole life policies. So, in this stream, we're going to explore how to break free from these limitations and unlock the full potential of leverage to achieve financial security, lasting retirement income, and true generational wealth. It's an entirely different conversation. You ready?
Let's do it. Because at the core, we're just talking about what's next. It's hey, we're velocity banking has taught us how leverage can be used to help us generate income. Well, when you think about it, how do most, I'll call it millionaires, become so? Well, 9 times out of 10, they become millionaires through real estate. But it's not just, hey, money came out of their checking account and went to go purchase real estate. They're actually using leverage, and it's the leverage or the use of other people's money that has allowed them to get there. How do banks become successful? Banks become successful by using leverage. So all we're doing is taking the concept of, hey, velocity banking teaches us how to use leverage. And now let's just build on that. What's the next level? What's the next stage? Where do we go from here? What do we do next now that we've learned how to use this leverage? We've freed up this cash flow. We've done all of these things to put us in a better, I'll call it positive economic position. Now let's use it. Now let's leverage it. So that's what we're going to do.
Well, this particular example, this head to head that we're going to do this evening, came from some calls that you have been repeated calls that you have had over this last couple weeks or so. It seems to be kind of a trend for you. So, why don't you go ahead and just kind of set up like why we chose this particular way of talking about this topic?
Yep, I am going to piggyback off of what day is it? It's Wednesday. So I am going to piggyback off of Sunday's live using some of the details from there. But this example is specific to a client that I was talking to related to his particular situation around, okay, he's doing velocity banking and he's been fairly successful at it, freed up some cash flow. Now he's ready to put that cash flow to work, and he's been offered this whole life policy. So he's thinking of putting his whole life, his cash flow to work inside of this whole life policy to do what? To generate more leverage so that he could do infinite banking and crush more debt and maybe eventually at some point eventually have income as well. And so what we kind of started talking through was I wanted to make sure he understood one, how the current product that he was looking at works. Because a lot of times when I run into people who have these cash value life insurance policies, they don't know, one, why they have them, nor do they understand how they work. So I just wanted to peel back some of the layers on his own policy to understand how it functions, understand how money's working for him, and based off the goal, because again, it all goes back to what's the goal. Based off his goal, will he be able to achieve his goal based on the vehicle that he now has in front of him? And if not, why? And hey, is there another option? So that's kind of what we're talking about.
Yeah, so go grab your policy and see what you learn tonight. We would love for you to ask any questions. This is an amazing time to be able to ask questions. But if you need a minute to go grab your policy and then come back and join us, that's okay too. I don't know if people know this, but they can, even if you're live, you can scrub back and then scrub forward if you need to. So that's an option for you. But catch up with us for the Q&A section so you'll be in real time. Okay. All right, so ready to jump in?
Yeah, but I love what you said there around go grab your policy, because let's be very transparent here and very specific. We're going to look at a Lafayette Life policy, and I think Lafayette. I've been seeing a lot of people recently receiving these Lafayette life insurance policies coming out of Velocity Banking and trying to put themselves in a position to be able to do infinite banking. So we're going to get very, very specific today. So yes, I'm ready. Let's do it.
Yeah, there's a reason why this is trending, and what's concerning is who is promoting these policies. We were sent a call. I'm full transparency. We were also sent a call from a client where they had been on a discovery sales type of call with a Velocity Banking product. And through this, not only were they being sold this system or this software for, I think it was like around $4,000, the person that was on the call with him that was selling them this software had just bought it herself. So not only had she just bought it, she's now selling it, and she hasn't even started using it. She wanted to share the value with the other people. But what we learned was it's an MLM, so there was an opportunity for her to reduce her costs by then selling the program as well. In that call was a lot of pitch for retirement vehicles, and this is what they're talking about. It is not a retirement vehicle, but because these people are not licensed, because these people are very a whole life policy. Is it
No, I
retirement?
was saying you're giving away the answers before the test.
I'm giving away. I'm just going to talk about this part, and then I'm not going to rant about it. It's just putting it out there. What is out there? I think people need to understand what's out there because they need to know who they're talking to. Sure. and what the initiative behind this is. When I was listening to this call, I was highly concerned because the person that sent me the call, they were going, I didn't know what questions to ask, but I got so confused because this person said that they just started, and then they were talking about all this retirement stuff, and she's like, how are all these people just suddenly in the retirement planning space? I don't know, but we're here to talk about it because being educated helps you make confident decisions and helps you understand how to navigate your journey and understanding where your leverage is so that you can achieve the outcome that you desire. We say it all the time. If you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there because it doesn't matter, right? Unless you have a goal. So we're with the goal in mind, let's jump in and let's talk about the differences, this head-to-head on these products and what to do with your leverage, what to do with your cash flow once you have increased it using a strategy like Velocity Banking, and how this same type of strategy can be powerful, not just in debt reduction, but in wealth creation as well. Let's jump in.
Oh, let's see here. Make it a little bit smaller. So over the last few, I'll call it few lives, we've covered a few different topics. One of them being velocity banking, obviously. What is it? And also what it looks like when you actually have negative cash flow. So all we're doing is actually building on these three areas that we've already talked about. Velocity banking is a tool designed, or a strategy rather, designed to leverage a debt tool to be able to increase your cash flow. And once you increase your cash flow, you have to be in a position where, hey, where am I going to put this cash flow so that it can continue to grow? Otherwise, I could find myself getting in a position where I end up falling backwards into the same situation I was in. And then lastly, last week or on Sunday, we kind of talked through what happens when you have negative cash flow and how you're able to get yourself out of it through the use of velocity banking. So, kind of where we landed or where we left off on Sunday was we had taken a situation where we started out at about negative 1600 in cash flow and flipped that around to start velocity banking at about $772 positive. So we went from a negative cash flow position into a positive cash flow position, leveraging I think it was a Navy Federal credit card to be able to do velocity banking, and ultimately went on our journey to reduce and or eliminate debt. And this is kind of that process over time as to what it looked like. We ended up going from, again, about, what was it, about negative 20,000 in debt to paying it off in approximately 20 months. So we paid off about $20,000 in debt in about 20 months. And what I'm going to do is pick up from this point. This point states that, hey, we're going to focus on paying off the line of credit from this point forward. But instead, well, what I want to do is take a portion of the cash flow that was generated during this period. So, during this 20-month period of eliminating this debt, take a portion of this cash flow and put it to work. And why am I doing that? It's because based off the true goal that was identified during this example, or during my conversation with my client, was, hey, we definitely want to put our money, get started as quickly as possible and putting our money to work for us. So I will forego paying off the line of credit, which means we're going to extend this out a little bit further. So we won't pay it off as quickly, but putting a portion of our cash flow to work so that we can accomplish our goal. And so what does that look like? Well, again, we ended with about $1,630 in cash flow. So the idea was take a portion of that and get it to work. So at that 20 month 20 position, even though there's still debt that needs to be eliminated, we've got enough cash flow to where we can also get it going, put it to work for us, so that we can actually start generating or increasing our ability to generate wealth over time. So, what's his goal? Well, in this case, the goal was really focused on generating some type of passive income for life, tax-free income for life, and in addition, safeguard against inflation as well, while also focusing on infinite banking, gaining more leverage, and ultimately producing compound interest. And we like to get very specific. Like, what does that mean in dollars? And the thought process was this: well, he's got a pension, so he feels like he's in a pretty good position from, I'll call it a retirement perspective. He's got a retirement vehicle that he feels like will be able to carry him throughout his life. But he does understand that retirement vehicle won't necessarily cover everything. So the thought process to start was, hey, if I could put myself in a position to where I could at least bridge a gap of about $30,000, I'd be fine. And so while going through this process and while freeing up this cash flow, he's been getting bombarded with opportunities to do so. And one of them was, hey, infinite banking. I want to focus on infinite banking and being able to put my money to work and identifying leverage. And if any of you have been, I'll call it, investigating or researching infinite banking, you all know from in most cases, when someone is talking about infinite banking, they are referencing a whole life policy. And so in his case, he had shared with me his whole life policy that he was presented. And again, it was based off taking a portion of his cash flow and putting it to work. It was about $409, I think. $409 a month was the objective. So out of the 1600, taking about 409, 410 bucks out of that 1630 and putting it to work, meaning there's still $1,200 in cash flow to get compounding, putting the rest into a vehicle. And so what I asked was, well, if your objective is $30,000 in income, can you walk me through how your whole life policy is going to be able to do that? Because I understand you're wanting to do infinite banking. I understand you're wanting to be able to put your money into a properly structured cash value life insurance policy so that you can leverage it and do other things. That I understand. But I'm not connecting the dot on how this product is going to produce income for you. So I asked, could you kind of walk me through that? And he couldn't. Uh, Am I the only one that just lost the vibe board, or did everyone lose the vibe?
No, I think, yeah, we all did.
Okay. Well, let's see if it comes back.
Hmm.
Great timing.
Where to go?
Got me. There we
Oh,
go.
oh, here we are.
So welcome back. So the thought process again was I wanted him to walk me through how his whole life policy was going to do these things. And he couldn't. And I didn't expect him to be able to, nor would I expect you to be able to. But I would expect the person that sold it to you to be able to kind of lay out some of those details so you can understand where you're going. Why would I expect that? Because that's what I would do. So if you're receiving a whole life policy from whoever it might be, you should at least understand how it works, or they should have at least explained to you how it works. So what I wanted to do was dig into how this whole life policy is going to help him accomplish his goal of bridging that gap of $30,000. So what does that look like? So okay, let's jump in. And so what I wanted to do was kind of start over here, kind of start at the beginning. Infinite banking. What is it? I think most of us know what infinite banking is, right? It's leveraging a properly structured cash value life insurance policy. It's a strategy. It's a strategy applied to a properly designed cash value life insurance policy. And what in leveraging that strategy or in leveraging that policy, it builds cash value. And as you're building that cash value, it allows you to put money in play at a low interest rate to be able to produce and or achieve your economic goals. So infinite banking is pretty standard, been around for a long time, and most people who offer infinite banking offer it through, as it states here, in most cases, it's done through, in most cases, infinite banking is done through a dividend paying whole life insurance policy. It's the most popular option. Notice, popular option, but not the only option. So again, infinite banking is a long-term financial strategy. It's meant to overfund your permanent life insurance policy, and in most cases done with the whole life insurance policy being the most popular option. Again, not the only. So if we look at the history of cash value life insurance in general, infinite banking started fairly long time ago, started around the 1980s. And notice, when did IUL start? IUL started in 1997. So the idea that infinite banking, which started with a whole life policy because the whole life policy was in position first, kind of makes sense. So if you design a whole life policy properly, you can do infinite banking to be able to invest in what you want when you want. Most people are not very keen on using an IUL or any other type of vehicle that's been created over the last 20 plus years to be able to do infinite banking. Why? The book, How to Become Your Own Banker, was built on or built around this whole life policy, again, which started in the 1980s. So it all makes sense. But when you dig into the details of the book, what you learn is even Nelson Nash realized that there was an opportunity here. Even Nelson Nash realized that, hey, we don't want to, I'll call it, pigeonhole ourselves and only thinking you can do infinite banking with one type of product. And so in the thought process was this: arrival syndrome. As powerful as infinite banking is, we have to realize that when arrival syndrome sets in, it's an illusion of knowledge that kind of shortcuts the ability to be able to grow. Meaning, if we pigeonhole ourselves in thinking that whole life policy is the only way to be able to do infinite banking, we could put ourselves in a position to where we won't be necessarily be successful. So it's not my words. It's Nelson Nash even stating that, hey, we need to be careful. I get it. Infinite banking is based off a properly structured whole life policy, but it is not the only way. So keep that in mind.
Well,
So
if
as
I
we kind
could,
of go ahead, sweetheart.
if I can add, just because
Go for
if anyone who's talking about infinite banking is usually touting Nelson Nash and usually has read the book and understands the concept very well as he wrote it, right? But he did write it decades ago. We have a completely different financial profile, economic profile now, and we needed new solutions. Is it fair to ask the question that if Nelson Nash were to be writing his book today, would he have utilize the tools available today in a different way because there are different tools available? I think it's
it.
fair to say that during that time, he used the tools that were available. That's all he could do, right? So that's fair. But to say that only those tools and to stay there and negate any other opportunities is where I have a big issue with that, and I have to ask why are people so closed off to other options, and why are they still touting infinite banking and the use of infinite banking and Nelson Nash almost like a belief system, right? This infinite banking belief system, but still tied to this one particular product. The question we always ask is,
Who benefits?
that's right. So I hope you're paying attention because you're sure to learn something if you are tonight.
Yep. So what's the alternative? Well, from my perspective, it's a SKIA. But what is a SKIA? A SKIA is a properly structured index universal life insurance policy. And to be specific, it's a max funded option B IUL with leverage. So it is an IUL, but it's an IUL with, I'll call it an accelerator. It's an IUL with leverage. And notice, I'm being very, very intentional and specific. The SKIA is a life insurance product that's designed to produce retirement income. If you remember my client's objective, he had a $30,000 gap that he wanted to close. Show me where in the definition of infinite banking it talks about retirement income. Here, let's go back. Where in this definition does it state retirement income? It doesn't. It's a strategy designed to increase your leverage so that you can step out, so that you can become your own bank. And what do banks do? They create spreads. They create an arbitrage situation to be able to generate more income or recapture the expenses going out. So the idea behind infinite banking, it's a strategy designed to use leverage to be able to go do other things outside of the policy, not income. It was never designed to do that. Matter of fact, it's not even capable. But still, the focus here is not just leverage, not just using a cash value life insurance policy to invest in other things if you choose to, but in addition, the objective is to produce income. And so again, so my focus is shifting to a SKIA. And what does SKIA stand for? A secure compound interest account. Secure compound interest, SKIA, secure compound interest account. Again, how it's structured matters. And in this case, we're talking about a max funded option B IUL. So let's dig into specifically some of the differences between a whole life policy and a secure compound interest account. And I know this is pretty small, but I'll talk through them. They are both permanent life insurance. There are many types of permanent life insurance. There's whole life policies, variable life policies, universal life policies, index universal life policies. There's many types. They are both permanent life insurance policies. Anyone who offers or uses or has an IBC policy, they always talk about having multiple. Why? If you noticed in the definition, it said, hey, the objective is to overfund a permanent life insurance policy. What happens when you overfund a policy? You have the potential of mecking it. The way you get around mecking the policy is you then add another policy. So single policy management is capable in a vehicle like this. It is not capable in whole life. 50% plus liquidity, or at least 50% plus liquidity potential. Most people who are doing most people who are doing infinite banking are wanting to be able to access their cash value as quickly as possible. Well, they both will allow for at least 50% liquidity, but let's be, again, full transparency. Whole life policy, you can get 75. And in some cases, you can even get 90. So you absolutely can have more liquidity inside of a whole life policy initially in year one compared to a product like this. But I can show you where that math doesn't really math either. But the bottom line is, if we're talking liquidity, if we're talking about access to cash value to start, a whole life policy can actually do pretty good at that. Lowest in expenses and fees. If any of you have gone to get your whole life policy, turn to the page where it describes the fees associated with your policy. Immediately go to the page. It should say expenses and fees in the top left corner. But here's the problem. When you pull out your whole life policy and you try to go to that page, you will learn that it does not exist. There's not any, if there's not much, if any, detail associated with what are the fees inside of this whole life policy. We'll dig into some of those details. But if we're talking about this vehicle, a SKIA again has to be max funded. What does max funded mean? Max funded is saying it has to be structured where we're purchasing the least amount of life insurance legally possible. What does that mean? Well, if I'm purchasing the least amount of life insurance legally possible, it ends up turning out to be the least amount of expense to you. The less life insurance you buy, the less expense to you. The less expense to you, the more your cash value grows, or more ability for your premium to be used to grow your cash value. So the moral of the story is the expenses are gravely different. Guaranteed security features. These are both permanent life insurance. And so therefore they both have the same security features. So there's no difference there. The match strategy, the leverage, the ability to use other people's money inside of this policy. Again, we've just learned about velocity banking. Velocity banking is about using some form of a line of credit to go do other things to grow your cash value. Well, this is a vehicle that offers a similar approach, the ability to use other people's money, leverage inside of the policy to grow it. This is not something that you're able to do with a whole life policy. 10% plus growth potential, 10% plus distribution potential. Growth and the potential to distribute income. Again, whole life policies are not designed to distribute income. They never were. Whereas this product, not only is it designed to distribute income, it's designed to distribute 10% plus, which is significant. And then tax-free distributions, again, these are both cash value life insurance policies, so they both offer that. And then tax-free death benefit, again, which is the same for both. But as it relates to infinite banking, they are both structured and designed to offer the same, meaning they are both capable of doing infinite banking, meaning you can leverage the cash value in both of these vehicles to still execute the strategy of infinite banking. I keep wanting to say velocity banking, and I'll say it again. Both of these products are structured for you to be able to leverage the cash value to do infinite banking. They're both designed to do that. So it's not that one can't versus one can. It is what's preferred. And I go back to structure. Structure matters. How you design a product like this is very, very important. Let's see here. Yep. So let's talk about that growth potential a little bit. Like, what does that look like? Well, inside of a whole life policy, one of the selling points around why you would want a whole life policy is the guaranteed growth. And this guarantee, oh, I need to move it over some.
No, I'll move you.
So
Okay.
this guaranteed growth of 4% inside on average, 4% inside of the whole life policy, that can increase, that can decrease, but right around now it's right around that 4% area. Whereas in IUL, the growth is not guaranteed inside of an IUL. But if you structure it properly, if you have the right features and the right levers inside of the product, you can absolutely achieve on average somewhere around 7%. And as it relates to a SKIA, again, the difference between an IUL and a SKIA, we're talking the additional leverage. So you have that same 7% potential, but in addition, there's a 2 to 3% opportunity on average to increase the growth inside of this policy due to the leverage. And then as it relates to the participating loan, this is the piece that people tend to miss, but is so important. The participating loan, what is that? Well, when you're doing infinite banking, you have to leverage your cash value to be able to invest in other things. How do you leverage your cash value? You have to take what's called a participating loan. You're going to take that participating loan, and when you borrow money out of your cash value life insurance policy, you're not borrowing it for free. There's a cost. And traditionally, and I love when I'm proven wrong because it's happened very infrequently. Show me the whole life policy where your participating loan is less than the growth. And in this case, in most cases, the participating loan is more than the money that you're making inside the policy. What does that mean? Well, if you're making a guaranteed 4% inside your policy, but it costs you 6% to touch your money. Every time you want to borrow your cash value to go take action, you're losing 2% inside the policy, which is why those who I'll call it educate around infinite banking state you have to pay back the loan that you borrow. You have to. There's no choice. Why? Because if you don't, you can cause your policy to implode. They don't say that. They say, hey, be a good steward. Be a bank. What would you do if you were borrowing money from a regular bank? You pay it back, right? So that's correct. But my point is, they're not saying that because you should be a good steward. They're saying that because if you don't, your policy will implode. So the idea is you have to pay back the loan. Why? Because there's negative growth inside of it. Whereas if you properly design an IUL or if you properly design a secure compound interest account, that that dollar amount or the cost to borrow, the interest rate on that participating loan is less than what's happening in the growth. And if you were talking about a SKIA, if we're growing somewhere between 7 to 10%, and it costs us somewhere around 4 to 5% to leverage the money, notice there's a positive spread, there's a positive arbitrage every time you leverage the money inside your policy. Again, but what does that mean? That means that whenever I go to use money inside my policy, I'm not losing money inside of the policy itself. So whatever investment I go to make, I'm actually making money in two places. I'm still making money on the leverage dollar that I borrowed. And then when I use that leverage dollar to go do infinite banking, I'm actually making money in multiple places. And in total, if I'm making money in so if the growth on my premium is causing me to make money, if when I leverage the dollar I'm still making money, and when I go to actually do infinite banking I'm making money, that's actually making money in three places. Compared to a whole life policy, the most you can do inside of a whole life policy and make money in two, meaning you've got your guaranteed 4% on the premium that you're contributing. And in addition, if you're doing something outside of the policy to pay down a bill, buy an investment property, invest, I would hope that you're at least making money on that investment. So you do have the capability of making money in two places. But as far as internally, inside of your policy, it's not, which why it is imperative that you pay back the loan. So my point is, which is better between these three? And I would say these two are absolutely more alike. I don't consider this an apples to apples discussion, but in most cases, when I'm talking to people, they are being served this whole life policy that is supposed to be designed to produce income. And what I'm sharing with you is from a growth potential perspective, it makes it very difficult to be able to achieve income inside of this product. So let's break it down a little bit. Let's look at the performance year or yeah, I guess this is year after year. So what does that performance look like? And I get it, this is pretty small, I'll make it bigger. But what we're looking at is a whole life policy compared to an IUL, compared to a SKIA over the first 10 years. And I'm going to dig into the details of an illustration, but this is just kind of high level what it looks like. So let's kind of make it a little bit bigger. So in month one, if we're putting away what is it, 400, I think it's 408.86. Don't ask me why this number was chosen, but this is what my client is actually contributing into this policy. So I wanted to keep it consistent. So $408.96. So 409. So if you're contributing 409 in year one, that's a total of 4906 over a 12-month period. So in year one, you put in 4906. In year one, inside of an IUL, you've put in 4906. Inside of a SKIA, it's the same 4906. So in year one, what you're contributing into your policy across all three products, pretty much the same. At year two, again, pretty much the same 4906 going into each product. But at year three, something happens inside of a SKIA that does not happen inside of any other cash value life insurance product. What happens inside of a SKIA is starting in year three, you've met the obligation of contributing consecutively to your policy. And therefore, the life insurance company says, congratulations. Everything you've contributed in year one can now be contributed into year three as brand new premium. So let me say it again. When you go to put in your 4906 at year three, the life insurance company comes along and says, hey, congratulations, you're now able to leverage, you're now able to borrow everything from year one and put it in year three as brand new premium. So, which means even though you've only put in 4906, it looks like you've put in 4906 times two. So, in essence, you have a match of the same dollar amount you contributed at year one being added at year three, whereas these other vehicles do not. So, just at the start of year three, which is better? I'm putting in the same 4906 as you, putting in your 4906 into your whole life policy. But in addition, the life insurance company comes along and adds an additional 4906. Now, if you're talking to your life insurance salesman, the guy that provides you a whole life policy, this is where red flags start to go off, or sirens are going off, right? Because if this is a borrowed dollar amount, there's a potential.
Wow.
I think it went bye-bye.
Okay. Hey, there he is. There's that guy. I don't know what
So,
happened there. It's
me
weird.
neither. Got gremlins. So again, from the perspective of the person selling life insurance, especially those who are selling whole life policies, when we start introducing leverage into the policy as brand new premium, there's a concern. There's a concern that, hey, if I'm adding leverage inside of this policy, shouldn't I have to pay that back? And if I'm adding leverage from this point forward, that could become excessive, meaning this policy could become over leveraged. Well, all of that is incorrect. And I can dig into the details as to why that's incorrect, but that is one of the, I'll call it the common themes around people who don't understand how this process works. And that's okay. But because you're here, you're going to learn that that is not necessarily the case. So again, year three, we've put in the same 4906, but the life insurance company comes along and adds an additional. And then in year four, the process happens again. At year four, there's that same 4906 that was added in year three is added again in year four. But at year five, something special happens. And again, it goes back to what happened in year three. At year three, because you can contribute it consecutively in year one and year two, at year three, the life insurance company says, congratulations, you can leverage, you can borrow everything from year one and add that in year three. Well, in year five, you just did the same thing again, meaning you just consecutively contributed to your policy in year three and year four. And so therefore, at year five, not only can you borrow from year one, you can also borrow from year one and year two, which means double this dollar amount is now being added at year five. And then at year seven, it's triple. Then at year nine, it's quadruple, and so on and so on and so on. And this goes indefinitely. Well, what does that look like over time? Again, over time, it looks like, yeah, you've contributed your 4906 in year one and in year two, but in year three, there's leverage added. At year five, there's more leverage added. At year seven, there's even more leverage added. And I kind of stopped here at year seven, and you'll understand why when I dig into the illustrations. But my client ended up getting what's called a 7-pay. It's a 7-pay, I'll call it illustration, meaning he's putting this 4906 in consecutively for the first 7 years. And then every year after that, he's doing something a little bit different. I wanted to kind of stay consistent. So I wanted to highlight what it looks like in the first 7 years. So in the first 7 years, I would have contributed 49.6 times 7. And then the life insurance company would have added some leverage. So in total, I would have contributed, along with the leverage, 78.5. Whereas everyone else in that 7-year period would have only contributed, I guess I'll come over a little bit more, would have only contributed 34,342. So again, in 7 years, I've contributed a total of $78,000, 78.5, whereas everyone else would have only contributed 34,342. So just based off contribution alone, assuming both products grow effectively, which one has more cash value capable of growing? Meaning which one has the ability to grow more cash value? If I'm only putting in 4906 every year and growing based off that, or if I'm able to add not just my 4906 but additional leverage or different an arbitrage created situation for me able to grow more, which is better? Just on GP on merit, which one would you rather have? And I get it. Structure matters. Where the product comes from matters. What it like, who provides it, what life insurance company is with. All of those details play a role. But my point is, if we're just looking at the mathematically, which one is better? And if you look at the first 10 years, we're talking about 49, again, 10 times 4906 is $49,060 over a 10-year period. Inside of a whole life policy compared to an IUL, it's the same dollar amount. Compared to 2 times the leverage is added plus your contribution, which means 3 times the dollar amount has been contributed into this policy at the same period of time. Which one has the ability to generate more income? But I know usually when we talk, I think I'm in the right place. Yeah. Usually when we talk about whole life policies, though, the comment that's made usually at this point is, but I was told I'd have access to more of my cash value in the first year with my whole life policy,
That's usually the number
right?
one comment.
It's
Yeah.
like I get all of this performance, all of this is great, but at year one, I have more access to my cash value in my whole life policy than I do here. Like, I want that same access. So let's kind of dig into some of that detail. So let's come here. While it is true that you could design a whole life policy for 75%, 90% of your cash value, you have to also dig into the details around, but how much is that truly? Because if you look at the structure of the policy, if it's not, I'll call it efficiently designed, could still be fees associated with that dollar amount, or there may be a reduction in that cash value. That means even if it's 90% of what that cash value should be, it still won't mathematically equate to 50% of what's happening inside of a properly designed SKIA. A lot of words, but let me explain what I mean. So, bottom line is, one, do you understand the fees? And if you're looking for leverage within the first year, do you have a plan for that leverage? Is it just the selling point of being able to have leverage versus understanding why you want that leverage, why you have that leverage, and what you're going to do with it? Meaning, do you have a plan in place, or is it just one of those novelties? Hey, because I have this cash value life insurance policy, it has cash value, and I'm able to use it. Now, whether or not you use it or not, that's not the point. The point is that it's there. So I think understanding why this policy is structured the way it is and how it's going to be used. And then also understanding your break even point. At what point does the money you put into this policy equate to the amount of money that's actually working for you in the policy? Meaning, if I put $1 in, do I have $1 working for me? If in 2 years I put in $2, do I have $2 working for me? In 10 years, I've put in $10, are all 10 of my dollars working for me? Or is there a deficit? Or is there a gap? And if so, why? So I think understanding those details are very critical. So what I wanted to do is let's dig into some of that specific detail. This is a snapshot of the Lafayette Life illustration that I had received from my client. And again, I know it's kind of small. I will drill in a little bit further, but I just wanted to kind of highlight what it is we're looking at. We're looking at 38-year-old, not standard non-tobacco, putting in about 408.86, about $409 a month. And this is the performance from a guaranteed perspective. This is the performance from a non-guaranteed perspective. And I highlight this because a lot of times when you hear people who dislike IULs, they speak to the fact that their whole life policy produced guaranteed returns, meaning there's guaranteed growth. And in most cases, when you're looking at an illustration, you actually focus on the non-guaranteed assumptions. Why is that? You focus on the non-guaranteed assumptions because in most cases, the non-guaranteed assumptions are the ones that function closest to actual, meaning the guaranteed section is the worst case scenario, whereas the non-guaranteed is based off performance, based off the performance over time, meaning over the previous X amount of years, it's looked like this. So in essence, this policy is normally or bound to perform closer to the non-guaranteed assumptions versus the guaranteed assumptions. So when you're looking at your illustration, the first thing I like to do is I like to understand, when do I break even? What do I mean? Well, if I'm putting in 4906, at what point is my cash value 4906? And so I'll kind of drill in a little bit. So I'm putting in 4906 in year one. If we go over here to the non-guaranteed section, non-guaranteed column, at year one, the net cash value is approximately 3771. So I put in 4906. I have 3771 in cash value available. And 9 times out of 10, if depending on how this is structured, somewhere around 50% of that amount is what I would be able to have as I'll call it liquid for me to be able to leverage and do infinite banking. If it's a 75% or a 90% design policy, then it would be 90% of this number. But the bottom line is I put in 4906. I have 3771 working for me. My first question is, where is the difference? Meaning, if I put it in 4906 and I have 3771 available, that difference went where? Where did it go? I should be able to scroll through my illustration and find where that difference is located. Because what that tells me is either it's fees or it's commission or it's both. And so if you don't have that answer, you should be provided that answer. Why? It helps you understand what's going to happen in the following year. So now let's look at year two. In year two, I put in another 4906. 4906 times 2 is more than 8163. What am I getting at? I'm getting at, where do you break even? At what point does the money you've put in equal the money that's working for you? And I'll explain why here in a minute. But I've already done that math. What we know is by year 7, you would have put in 34,342. Let's look at year 7. Year 7, it equates to 33,914. Again, you've put in 34,342. You've got 33,914 at year 7. You do not break even at year 7. As I mentioned, this is a 7-pay policy. That's kind of what it says up here. This is a 7-pay. What that means is at the end of the 7 years, the contribution, the premium contribution changes. And specifically in this policy, at year 8, it goes from 4906 down to 4845. Well, if I add that 34,342, which is the addition of the first 7 years, to the next year of 4845, I get 39,187. So in 8 years, I would have contributed 39,187. Well, what does this look like at that 8-year mark? Let me make sure I'm in the right place. 8 years. So 8 years, it would be 39,957. Again, 39,187 compared to 39,957. I still haven't broken even. So what ends up happening is you end up breaking even in this policy at year 9. So it's not year 8, it's at year 9 you end up breaking even in this policy. It took 9 years just to break even. Why do I care about that so much? Well, if we go back to the goal was to generate income and the goal was to produce compound interest. What does that mean? Well, compound interest is your money making money, and the money that your money makes continues to make you money. Well, if I don't break even in this policy until years 8 or 9, the rule of 72 tells me how long will it take for my money to double just one time? Well, if I don't break even till year 9, then logically that means it's going to take possibly 9 years for my money just to simply double. If the goal is to be able to produce income, I need a vehicle that can produce compound interest for me and that can produce it in less time than 9 years. But in this case, if
I have no idea what's happening. It just keeps throwing you off, or yeah. Okay. Sorry. Game on.
so, what I'm sharing with you now is a different illustration. The first was a Lafayette Life illustration. This one is actually a Mutual of Omaha. I can write these policies through many different life insurance companies, but I went ahead and chose Mutual of Omaha just to give a different view. Why did I choose Mutual of Omaha? Well, you should Google Mutual of Omaha. What you'll find if you were to Google Mutual of Omaha is Mutual of Omaha offers the number one IUL in the country. In addition, their IULs are IULs with the least amount of fees. Why does that matter? Well, if we're focused on income and structure matters, and a properly designed IUL has to be max funded, least amount of fees, option B, increasing death benefit, IUL with leverage, and if Mutual of Omaha offers the number one IUL with the least amount of fees, this is about the most efficient policy you can receive as it relates to this strategy. So, putting in the same 4906. And again, in this case, you got the guaranteed column, the non-guaranteed, the alternate guaranteed, and then the non-guaranteed. So we're going to focus our attention on this non-guaranteed section. Why? Because that's the one closest to actual. So you're putting in 4906 in year one. You come over here to, and I'll make it bigger. You're putting 4906 in year one. The accumulation value at year one is 43,906. So if you remember, it was 3771 inside of that Lafayette Life policy. But here it's 4396 is that net cash value. And the nomenclature is different, but means the same. Accumulation value, cash value, same thing. 43,906 is what's available at year one. Even if the most you could get or leverage you could have outside of this was 50%, you're still right around the same dollar amount inside of the whole compared to the whole life policy. Why? Because the fee structure is different. The cost associated, or how much money is actually working for you at year one is less. So, but anyway, my point is you've put in 4906 in year one, you have 4396 working for you at the end of year one. So when do you break even inside of a product, inside of just, I'll call it a regular IUL? Well, in this case, again, I've already done it for you. You break even at year five, meaning at year five, you would have put in 4906 times five. You would do the math, 4906 times five is less than the 24,889 that's available to you here in cash value. So you break even inside of a properly designed IUL at year five, compared to 9 years inside the whole life policy. That's just an IUL. What does it look like as it relates to a secure compound interest account? Well, how do we determine that? Well, we know that at year three, everything from year one gets added to year three. And what we know is in 3 years, you'd have $15,018. Well, year three inside of this policy is 1419. That's $1,000 more, which means your break even point inside of this policy, when it's designed to do a premium finance strategy like MPI, your break even point is year three. Don't believe me? Sweetheart, let me pull up the calculator if you don't mind.
Okay. Oh, here we go.
So again, this is a 38-year-old putting in $408.86 for '09. And what does that look like in, let's call it 3 years? Well, I'll start with the first one. Let's look at what it looks like in 1 year. So at 39, he would have put in that 4908, and it's 4908 because of rounding, not that big of a deal, but so it's a little bit off. It's off by a few dollars. But the bottom line is he's put in that 4908, and notice he does not have 4908 working for me. So there are fees. It is less. But by year three is where that leverage kicks in. Year three, he would be 41. So by year three, he would have contributed 14,724, but would have cash value of about $15,018. Meaning he breaks even. All of his money is working for him by year three. How is that even possible? It's possible because there's leverage of an additional 4908 added. And again, this leverage didn't come at free of charge. There's a cost to this 4908, but it all happens internally. It's not a cost that has to come out of his pocket. It all happens internally. And so the 14,724 that he contributed, added to the 4908 that was leveraged or matched, causes his cash value to then exceed what he's contributed, which means his break even is at year three. Why does that matter? Well, if he's able to break even at year three, then his capability of producing compound interest, meaning his money working for him, putting himself in a position to where his money is making money, happens faster, which means he has the ability to better achieve his goal because he breaks even sooner inside the policy. Oh, and in addition, he can still leverage his cash value to do infinite banking. So he has not been restricted in any way, shape, or form to be able to also execute infinite banking if he wanted to, and he has more cash value to do so. Sweetheart, you can move back over to the vibe board.
Okay.
Oh.
I think your audio and video might be off. I don't know if it is for other people.
Okay. So, moral of the story is the products are very different. They perform different. The structure's different. But based off your goal to be able to achieve income, be able to use leverage, be able to do infinite banking, it's kind of a no-brainer because you have more access to your cash value and you have more of it available to you to be able to use faster inside of a vehicle like this. But as I mentioned, there are fees. And the whole life policy, again, if you went and pulled your whole life policy out, again, go to the expense page or the fees page and identify that difference between what I stated here, 4906 at the start compared to 3771. That difference, what's that breakdown of that difference? And you'll find that you can't find it. But if you wanted to understand the breakdown of the difference between 4906 and 4396, if you wanted to understand the breakdown of that difference inside your policy, all you have to do is scroll to the fees page. And the fees page looks like this. And again, I understand it's pretty small, but I'll make it bigger. There are 3 buckets of fees associated with having a cash value life insurance policy. There's the premium charge, the expense charge, and the cost of insurance. Now, if you add up these three numbers don't actually add up to the amount that was deducted from this 4906. It's actually meaning this number is more than what was actually deducted. Well, what you have to remember is you're going to make money on the 4906 and fees are going to be taken out, which leaves you that end result. But these are the fees. What are those fees? What do these fees even mean? Well, the premium charge is just what it states. Every time you put in a premium of 4906, the life insurance company comes along and takes a piece. Now, if you stop in this particular person's case at year 7, he reduces the amount that he's contributing at year 7 to a different dollar amount. Then that means this this premium charge at year 8 will also be reduced. And if he stopped contributing at year 10, the expense charge at year 10 would be eliminated. So the premium charge is solely based on the amount being contributed at the time. If you stop contributing, the expense charge goes away. I'm sorry, the premium charge goes away. The expense charge, what is it? The expense charge is the cost of underwriting, the cost of the maintenance of your policy. The commission is in this number. And it's this expense charge which really determines how your policy is going to perform. This expense charge can be structured incorrectly if the person who's designing it doesn't know what they're doing, or if they're intentionally designing it so that it doesn't benefit you. The way you can make sure, the way you, if you're assessing your own policy, the way you make sure that this expense charge is, I'll call it, headed in the right direction, is if it's decreasing. It has to be designed with a decreasing fee structure. What does that mean? It means, yeah, it's going to be whatever it's going to be at year one, but notice at year five, it reduces. And then at year, what is that, year 11, it drops down to $60 a year forever. Meaning from year 11 on, it's $60 per year for the rest of the time that you have this policy. And in most cases, for the rest of your life. This decreasing fee structure allows for you to accumulate the maximum amount of cash value possible. How? When do you need this money the most? You need this money the most when you're in retirement. You need this the most at retirement age. So if you're accumulating or building, meaning if you're paying the least amount of fees later on in life, that's when you need it the most. So this policy is growing more efficient for you. And then the cost of insurance is exactly how it sounds. Every year you get older, it costs more to insure you. And as you get older, that cost of insurance increases. And there are many more pages to this document, but the moral of the story is the cost of insurance continues to increase. But as long as your cash value is outperforming these fees, you're able to grow cash value at a rate that will allow you to be able to close that gap that was initially requested. The request initially was, hey, I'm looking for at least $30,000 a year to supplement my retirement, knowing that, hey, this is just where I'm starting. I'm putting away $408 a month to start. That doesn't mean that's where I'm going to, I'll call it, continue going forward, but I'm just starting here. And based off where I'm starting, the objective is to be able to at least accumulate somewhere around $30,000 a year in income. So what does that look like? So I'm gonna slide back over to the vibe board again, sweetheart.
To the calculator.
That's what I meant.
To the calculator.
So in this case, if we were to run this out to, let's say, age 65, what does that look like? Remember, his objective was, I need at least $30,000 in income to supplement my retirement and everything else that I'm doing. Well, if he was to put away this, again, this is assuming he doesn't change his dollar amount, 409 for the rest of his life, he would have available to him in liquid, tax-free dollars of about 44,000 tax-free for the rest of his life and cash value of about 450,000. And again, that's putting away $408 a month till age 65. At 4906 till age 55. Again, about 44, I call it 44, let's just call it 45,000 rounding. So about $45,000 in income and cash value of about 450,000. And just so we're clear, this is a life insurance based product. The initial amount of life insurance purchased is about 147,000. So the 4960 is buying about 147,000 initially as the base amount of life insurance. But this is an option B policy. What does that mean? As the cash value grows inside this product, and as we create more room to be able to compensate for the additional leverage coming in, the death benefit continues to increase as the cash value increases, which means, but if something were to happen to him around that age of 65, he'd be passing on about $1 million in death benefit to his beneficiaries because of this increasing death benefit. So again, moral of the story, if he continues down this same path, not only will he be able to bridge the gap that he was originally hoping for. Again, if he just kept this the same, that's not the intention, but if he just stayed with the 408 or 409 a month, he would be about 14, almost 15 grand more than what his initial goal was. All because he moved his money to a secure compound interest account or a vehicle that would allow him to be able to generate that wealth. Go ahead, sweetheart.
Oh, why is it so important to note that you get the cash value included in your death benefit, and why sometimes is this not included in whole life policies or
Um,
talked
I might,
about?
I think I might have a visual for that to kind of explain it. Also, let me scroll down here. Yep. So might have to make us a little bit smaller.
Mm,
No, that's good.
okay.
That's good.
All right.
So there are two types of well, again, this goes back to structure matters. And so in a lot of cases there is an option A or an option B structure, or some people call it option 1 versus option 2. Like, what does that mean? Well, in some cases there is a increasing death benefit, or a level. In this case, it's a level death benefit. Option A is saying it's a level death benefit, meaning the death benefit stays the same. So, regardless of how much cash value is being accumulated inside the policy, the death benefit itself stays where it is. And this cash value that's being accumulated, that can be considered or called as living benefit, meaning while you're here, you're able to leverage this cash value to be able to use whatever you want. But if you were to pass, the death benefit that would pay out to your beneficiaries would be minus what you've used as a living benefit, and they get to keep what's left. So why is that important? If we're talking about legacy, if we're talking about being able
Right.
to put generations that come after you in a position to be able to also continue down this path of generating wealth, we want to make sure we're putting in their best foot forward by giving them the maximum amount possible to be able to achieve that. And whereas in an option B policy, the death benefit increases as the cash value increases. And the death benefit is two numbers. It's the life insurance plus the cash value. And so when you add the life insurance plus the cash value, so the way all cash value life insurance policies work is when you're leveraging against it, you're actually borrowing against the dollar amount you're using. And you should pay it back in most instances, but if it's properly designed, you don't have to. Why? Because the money that you're borrowing is actually less than what's actually growing inside of the policy. So therefore, it pays for itself. And then therefore, your beneficiaries end up receiving all of the death benefit, which is all of the life insurance that was accumulated, plus all of the cash value that you never touched, even though you've been taking income of, what was it, $44,000 over the last 20 plus years. Because that didn't eat into that cash value, your beneficiaries end up taking it all.
So if in an option one policy, option A policy, if you are borrowing against it for an infinite banking purpose, if you're borrowing against it for income because it's not designed for that, then what happens if you have an outstanding loan beyond your cash value when and if you pass?
Yeah, in most cases, that outstanding loan, and actually, I think that's here as well.
And we have some questions coming in too.
No problem. In most cases, that outstanding loan would be, I'll call it, deducted from that cash value. And so, therefore, that death benefit in total ends up being less because that outstanding loan will also be removed from the amount that's owed.
Okay. Well, it's really good to know. The other part is a lot of people talk about it's life insurance. You're supposed to use it while you're alive, but what they are actually saying in that statement could mean that you don't get the cash value. So while the cash value is the top priority or the shining star of that conversation, and where people's eyes get really big and think, wow, that looks like an opportunity. Really peeling back the layers of what I have seen you do is help people be able to read their policy so that they feel confident and they understand what it is that they bought and that they're looking at. Oftentimes, the assumptions that they made based off of the conversation that they had is what they think that they purchased. But then they realize they're missing pages, which I don't know how that's even legal, but you've seen it firsthand. I've seen it firsthand where that information is not included. So they have to go back and get that information. And sometimes those agents aren't even, they're not even working in life insurance anymore because the turnover rate is so high. It's like 90% of agents in their first year quit. And a lot of the reasons why people jump in is not for the same purposes that you did. It was for an income, a career, right? It was to generate income. So let me pull up some of these questions because
Question.
we got some really good questions. Yeah.
Yeah, no problem. Let's jump in.
Okay. Um, well, do you want to go over what we've learned real
Well,
quick?
that's really the only thing we have left. So we can go over the questions, or we can just finish up with it. That's the last slide anyway.
Yeah, go
Totally
ahead
up to
real
you.
quick. You guys, you don't mind, right? We'll just go through these points real fast. Okay.
Okay. So moral of the story. So what have we learned? So we've covered a lot, but what have we learned? We've learned that one, um, Nelson Nash didn't necessarily say whole life is the only way. Just said, hey, be conscious of the fact that as things evolve, there may be an opportunity to leverage other things or put other things in play to be able to accomplish the same goal. But at the moment, whole life was the best. Is that the same today? Are there other vehicles out there that can actually allow you to hit your goal faster and be a bit more efficient? Not all policies are the same. Not all whole life policies are the same. Not all IULs are the same. Structure matters. Who creates it? The life insurance company that it's through matters because all of those pieces play a role as to how efficient your policy will or won't grow. Most people don't know how to read a policy, and why should you? Um,
Right.
I would I would hope that the person that provided it to you would educate you, at least highlight the areas that you need to pay attention to. Your main objective when you receive an illustration from a life insurance provider is I want to know, is my policy structured the way that it's supposed to? I want to know that it's going to do exactly what I'm expecting it to do. And I would expect the person providing it to me to share with me the stuff that I don't even know to ask.
Yeah, but that's the thing is that if you don't know to ask, then you don't know what's missing out of that conversation. And sometimes it's not even like people are out here really trying to scam
Right. I
people
agree.
out. It's that's not it. Sometimes that they're just uneducated.
Right.
Wherever they got their training from, they
I'm a
are just
salesperson.
not aware. Yeah,
Right.
they
I'm
were
a
trained to
salesperson.
sell, right? Versus to utilize and build leverage and retirement income. This was a side benefit to this product, right? So it's not their fault all the time. A lot of these companies, especially the MLM style companies, they should do a better job of training people. But again, even the company, they could have provided A plus 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 training, right? And if the person was only focused on the amount of income that they could make, the type of policies they need to write in order to make the most amount of income, they can't stop them from doing that either. So it's really up to us to become educated so we can advocate for ourselves.
Right. And so understanding not just your leverage, but understanding why. Understanding what is the point, the purpose, the goal around this policy and how it's going to be used. Am I getting it just to simply leverage and continue down the velocity banking path, or is there a bigger picture here? Is there a larger objective? And will this policy, the way it's designed, the way it's structured today, allow me to be able to hit that goal? And again, when you talk about infinite banking and how to leverage whole life, it was never designed to produce retirement income. That is not how it's structured. It's not even capable. Why? Again, if you're going to be your own bank, show me the bank that will lend money and lose money on the money that is lending. That is not how banks work. But the way it works internally inside of most, if not all, whole life policies is growing at that guaranteed 4%. But when you go to leverage the money out of it, it costs more, which means internally you're losing money. Show me the
Right,
bank that would accept that. It doesn't exist. And so
right,
structure matters. And obviously, we talked about arrival syndrome, and you highlighted the fact that a lot of times you're dealing with agents who don't know what they don't know. I can almost guarantee there's a large percentage of agents on this live right now getting this education today because there's a lot of agents who don't understand how those policies work. And as a result, when you go back to understand why your policy is structured a certain way or try to get it changed, that person doesn't exist. The person is no longer there. So I think these are the questions, or these are the things that you want to make sure that we're discussing up front. And you have to pay more for your cash value to be paid out along with your death benefit. And that's that option A versus option B. How it's structured matters to make sure that it is growing efficiently and you're not impacting your legacy and not
right.
even realizing it. meaning your cash value and your death benefit is going to be the full death benefit that you're able to transition, versus your death benefit is actually being eaten up due to the fact that your living benefits is being deducted from the total death benefit. Like
And
understanding whether you have an option A versus option B or an option one versus option two policy matters. Go ahead, sweetheart.
And for some people, this is when they learn that everything they thought they were building to build and create a legacy, to have something to pass on, is not even going to be the case. They could have just gotten a term policy, right?
Right.
They could have just gotten, if it was just for the death benefit, if that's all they were going to pass on, they could have just been doing that, because most people, to the next point, most people, they like the idea of infinite banking, but when you have asked them, I love, we have a policy, we've used it for infinite banking, we have become our own bank, this is the life that we live. Yes, leverage and becoming your own bank. How are you gonna, what are you gonna use your bank for? So that we make sure that everything's properly structured. Let's talk about it. Let's talk through what it is that you're wanting to do. And the majority of people go, oh, I don't know, I just like
Right.
the idea of being able to. And what's really sad about that is that it's an expensive option if you're not using it. And then if you don't know how to leverage it and understand the spread that you would need in order to make this make sense, because you're losing money by borrowing it, cost to borrow, right? Is would have to be so low risk. You go out there and you buy a house and suddenly you need a new roof, or there's a crack in the foundation and now you're losing money and you can't get the money back into your policy, because the idea is like borrow it and put it back in, right? That's, everybody talks about that. But sometimes if you're using it to like invest in real estate, for instance, it's not so cut and dry. You can't just put it back in, right? So understanding what that could mean for you might mean that none of this was worth it in the first place, and now you just lost time, you've lost energy, you've lost resource, and everything that you've been working for. That's the unfortunate part. And what's ultimately, the person who sold you this policy is not tied to your outcome. They do not care. You cannot call them and say, look what happened when I tried to use this for infinite banking. They don't care. Nothing is happening in their world. There is nothing, no impact to them. They are not tied to your outcome, which is why it's really important to less about trusting, right? And more about being educated, so that when you're making a decision, you're not making a trusting decision, you're making a confident decision. You get what it is that you're doing. You understand the strategy and you know how to leverage it and utilize the tools available to you. You can see opportunities because you get it. Like you can identify where they are, and you don't have to make those calls. But in the process of learning, right? That's the important part. That's the impactful part, is in the process of learning that we are able to have access to information so that we can learn. I mean, you and I, we had to have access to information in order to learn. And I was super stubborn, as I've said many times here. Okay, so, and then on that note, it is all about leverage. So not only did we have to learn how to leverage different tools, how to leverage them one into the other, right? In connecting them. Leverage is the most powerful piece of all of this. And I love this, the comment that you made in the very beginning. This is how wealth is generated. It's based on leverage. Our country runs on leverage, right? There's so much that we don't talk about in terms of the concept of debt, because for the average consumer, it's just consumer debt. It's just like bad debt, but we don't talk about good debt. Those aren't the conversations that are happening within our circles generally. So velocity making in this strategy is powerful, and this is why we talk about it, not for debt reduction, because we don't believe that focusing on being debt free is going to help the problem, right? It's part of a strategy, understanding leverage, so that you can reduce the problem growing, and then you can contribute that towards wealth generation. That's important. I'm going to stop talking now because we have questions and they've been waiting. You have
No
anything
problem.
else
Let's
you want
jump
to
in.
add?
No, I think you said it very well. It's that last item. You know, these past few weeks, this whole series has been around understanding how to use leverage effectively.
Yeah.
So that's why I think if we can drive anything else home today, it is, so why not why not put yourself in a position to where leverage is also allowing you to generate wealth inside of your properly designed cash value life insurance policy? Meaning, we've We've talked about how to leverage your home. We've talked about how to leverage home equity lines of credit and credit cards.
Yep.
Why wouldn't you also be able to use leverage inside of a properly designed cash value life insurance policy to generate income as well? So it's just carrying it all the way through. It's making sure that you understand, one, not just how to use leverage, how to make sure that the products are structured properly so that you can effectively use that leverage.
Yeah. And one other thing real quick before we get in here, because I don't want anybody feeling like, hey, I'm a little bit timid to ask a question because I don't want to be it to be pointed out that I might have made a bad decision. And oftentimes, even when it comes to people feeling a little bit hesitant and booking a call with you, it's free, by the way. It's just that they're almost like, okay, listen, I made some bad decisions. I don't want you to tell me that though, because I'm already feeling bad based off of like watching these lives. That is not the case. You didn't make a bad decision. You are making decisions and educating yourself on moving forward and building wealth. And I think the way that you handle that is so good.
Well, my take on it is this: you don't know what you don't know. And a lot of times we buy products from people who don't know the details either. But now that you know, you get to make a decision. You get to take action. You have an opportunity to adjust. And here's the piece: what are we buying here? Like when you strip it all down, what are you actually buying here? You're buying a life insurance policy. And when was the last time you went to State Farm and had State Farm tell you how to generate income? Like, it just doesn't exist. Traditional life insurance based products are not designed to produce income, but they do have the capability of doing so. So now that you know, now we have the opportunity to make this adjustment. And let's say you bought a policy and you bought a policy that's not as efficient as it should be. Here's the win: you're still here because it's a life insurance policy. It's designed to assist you when you're no longer here. But the fact that you're here means you get to make an adjustment, and you get to make an adjustment to put it in the proper position so that you can achieve your goal. So, again, who you got it from, how you got it, how it's structured, it doesn't matter. The key is you can make that adjustment now to be able to move forward. And the cool part about that is there's no love lost here, because if you do it right, you have enough time to be able to still accomplish your goal.
Yeah. And I love that because it makes people feel a lot, brings that wall down so that they can ask the questions that need to be asked and have a different type of conversation versus feeling like they're going to be sold something or they're going to be judged based off of their decisions. And our whole goal is to bring that wall down, is to kind of lighten that filter that we have to use when trying to even just learn and get educated about this stuff. People need help, and there is a problem out here just in with what we're seeing today in people who have already retired, not having enough and having to go back to work. If we see that now, imagine what that's going to look like in the next 5 or 10 years. The resources aren't going to be the same. The opportunities aren't going to be the same. And so what will that landscape look like? This is why we're out here like shouting it from the mountaintops. It's a problem, and we have to be able to get educated because there are many ways to 10 and everyone has different variables, right? Okay, Antonia says, however, isn't that loan from the insurance company, would that not have increased interest?
So let me restate the question. So, since we're borrowing money from a life insurance company, isn't that loan compounding? Right? And so, because that loan is compounding, the interest owed on that loan is continuing to get bigger. That's the
Right.
question,
Yep.
right? The question is, hey, because this loan, like I talked about 49.60 or whatever that dollar amount was in year 3, then it doubles and then it triples and then it quadruples, it continues to get bigger. Doesn't that mean that the interest owed on that loan is starting to compound as well? Well, here's the reason that's not true. And I'm going to say this, I'm going to use the words, but I respect the fact that this really needs to be visually shown, which we will do. But just understand this. Let's talk about year 1, 2, and 3. Year 1, you contribute what you contribute, it is what it is. Year 2, you contribute what you contribute, it is what it is. In year 3, you've contributed the same premium, but the life insurance company has now allowed you to borrow everything from year 1 to add to year 3. It's not, you're not borrowing that dollar amount for free. It's at, let's call it an interest rate of, let's call it 4%. Well, The growth on that dollar amount is upwards of 7 to 10%. Well, if I made 7 to 10%, let's call it 7. If I made 7%, it cost me 4%. There's a spread created, meaning when I pay back the 4% that I owed on that loan, the difference is 3. I keep the 3. The life insurance company receives the 4. You might be thinking that I owe principal and interest, but I don't. The money that I borrowed is not in my pocket. The money that I borrowed is not in my checking account. The money that I borrowed is still with the life insurance company. So I don't owe principal and interest. I only owe interest. I am leveraging, I am borrowing that 4960 and putting it to work, but I don't physically have it in my hand. So therefore I don't physically owe it, but I do owe the interest. There is a cost to borrow, and that cost to borrow is 4%. When I make 7, I pay back the 4, I keep the 3. Well, what happens with any loan if you pay back the principal and interest? Meaning, let's say I bought a car for 50,000. When I pay back the 50,000 plus the interest that I owed, what happens with that loan? It becomes what's called self-collateralized. And when it becomes self-collateralized, I don't owe it anymore. It's been paid off, which is why the following year I get to borrow it again. So it's a brand new borrowed dollar amount. It's not the same, it's brand new. Why? Because I've already paid off the one from the prior year. So the interest isn't compounding. I owe interest in the year that it occurred. And as long as I make more than I owe, there's no interest owed. And I know the next question coming. Well, what happens when the market crashes? Or what happens if I don't make more? Well, that's easily identified as well. And again, I'm using words to kind of talk through it. And I will show you physically what this looks like inside of the product. But
Well,
the
you
moral of the
have.
story is that's accounted for as well. Go ahead.
You have shown this quite a few times, and
Oh,
if you've
absolutely.
if you've seen a video where we have the buckets
Mhm.
on the black screen with the buckets,
We've
that's
got a
the
lot of new people, sweetheart.
yeah.
Got a lot.
We do have a lot, but I just wanted people to know that it does exist if you wanted to find it, and a lot of those are the IUL versus videos if you dig in the channel. Okay, so but I wanted to get through. We have got a lot of questions. Okay, Tim says, would withdrawing my 401k, taking the 30% hit, adding the 70% to my MPI policy be a good move?
Um, it depends. So questions like this, you're going to get the same response from me a lot, and that is, it depends on the goal. I'm a retirement consultant. My job is to make sure you're generating the maximum amount of income. I cannot, in good conscience, say that it would be okay for you to take a 30% hit on anything to put it anywhere. I can't say that. But I have had situations where it may mathematically make sense. And so that decision would kind of be up to you. So let me kind of give you an example. Let's say I'm 30 years old. I just started working for this company. I've got about $50,000 in my 401k. I left the company, so I no longer have. I'm no longer contributing, and I moved on to another company. That $50,000, 30% of $50,000 is 15 grand. That's 35 grand left over. Would it make sense at age 30 to take that $35,000, put it in a secure compound interest producing vehicle, and let it do whatever it's supposed to do? I can mathematically justify that making sense. Hey, young, got compound cycles ahead of them, don't like paying 30% on that $50,000, but I can see where that would make sense because in the long run, it'll work itself out. But let's say I'm 50 years old and I've got a $500,000 in my 401k that I just left this job and I just moved to another. Does it mathematically make sense for me to take a 30% hit on a $500,000? That's $150,000. Does it mathematically make sense for me to do that and put it into a vehicle like this? I don't know that I can justify that one. So I think it really depends. It's specific to individuals. I think the easiest thing to do would be to get on a consult and we can talk through it. But my objective would be to how can you accomplish your goals and not be impacted by any, I'll call it 30% loss anywhere. Like, is there a way that you can still accomplish your goal without having to take that loss? And I think that's kind of the role that I play in kind of identifying where those opportunities are. So I don't think it's a straight answer, yes or no. I think it kind of depends because everyone is different.
Okay, next he asks, what's the average percent that taxes have gone up in the past 5 years?
I don't know. Tax. So we're not talking about the interest rate inside of the policy. We're talking about taxes.
Oh, maybe for the 401k, maybe the tax and penalties. I don't know. We'll get some clarification on that.
and so here's the thing. How about this though? Let me answer a question with the question.
Well, we have a lot of
Do you
questions.
think do you think the tax rate today, the tax rate that you know today,
Oh,
do
right.
you think it will be more or less in the future?
Yeah. It's definitely not going to be less.
Why do I say that though? So most of us who contribute to traditional retirement vehicles, IRAs, 401ks, 403bs, TSPs, you name it, we've been lied to, not just by our employer, but by the financial institutions that hold our retirement accounts. They have conditioned us to believe that deferring our taxes is what we should do.
Yeah, because well, it's created a whole ecosystem for them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's based off the fact that, hey, you don't want to pay the taxes today. You should defer them today so that you can do what? Pay whatever we decide them to be in the future. So while I don't know how the taxes have increased over the years, I can tell you this. Last year was less than this year, and next year will probably be more than this year. So it's going to continue going up. So the best thing you can do is put your money in a position to where none of that even matters. Put your money in a tax-free vehicle generating tax-free income, so it doesn't matter who's president, it doesn't matter what the tax rate is, because I'm generating tax-free income. That to me should be the objective.
What blew my mind was when we were talking about required minimum distributions, RMDs, and we were also in that same conversation talking about inherited IRAs and how if they had already been forced to start taking distributions or had been taking distributions, even if they pass it on to somebody who is not at that age, they still have to take those distributions and pay taxes on them. So this could be like a thanks, mom, thanks, grandma. And then all of a sudden it pushes you into some tax bracket, and the benefit of what you thought you were going to be getting, this distribution is just getting pretty much eaten up by taxes. And this frustrates the mess out of a lot of people because there's just rules that they cannot avoid. They were already set in place, and these vehicles that people were investing into part of this to be the legacy, and that it never was going to be, and they didn't understand what that actually meant. They were really just looking for security, right? This is how I'm going to secure my future, that I have enough to take care of myself, and then I have something to pass on. Well, what the heck are you passing on? For a lot of people, it's a headache. For a lot of people, it's something frustrating they can't use for anything else, and they can't disperse it the way you think to your other children, or a lot of assumptions are made in this process, but these vehicles do need to change. And so part of this conversation is we all need leverage. We need access to leverage in order to level up. Sometimes those moments are for medical reasons, right? Those are for emergencies. Some of those things are for upgrades to our lifestyle. But the majority of what we're doing is we are leveraging somebody else's time, somebody else's knowledge, or vehicles, right? To be able to make different moves. We have to start changing the conversation. This can no longer be taboo, that we have these discussions inside of our own living rooms, even at our kitchen tables with our family members, so that they understand what it is that they're about to do, what they're about to pass on. That's a whole nother live stream. Okay. Veronica says, if you have an option A policy, can it be changed to an option B policy?
Yes. And matter of fact, because again, we didn't get into the full detail, but let's say I create for you a secure compound interest account, and it's an option B policy, meaning the death benefit is increasing. Well, when you need those funds, when you hit retirement age, I am going to suggest to you to transition from an option B to an option A. Why is that? Well, as you get older, the cost of insurance increases. And so what we would want to do is we don't want any more fees than we have to pay inside your policy. So transitioning at the latter years from option B back to option A actually is the right thing to do. And again, it goes back to structure and who is creating this for you, and how it's designed for you to be able to maximize the amount of income that you're wanting to take. but that's not something that you should have to worry about. Again, if I'm designing this for you, this has to be a managed process. It's on me to make sure that when you hit that, when you're getting approaching that retirement age, or you're in the midst of that age where you're starting to take distributions, we want to transition from option B back to option A.
Okay, next one is from Elizabeth Stein. She says, what would be the insurance cost when he is 65 plus? So the example that you were showing, let's say he cannot work anymore at 55. Can this insurance fund itself, or does he lose the insurance if he cannot pay?
So there's a lot here to this answer. So
You
let's
want to
start
show
here.
something?
No, I don't, not yet.
Okay.
Let me just think about it. So okay, let me break it down. So what would be the insurance cost when he's 65 plus?
Yep.
So the premium charge will be whatever the premium charge is. The expense charge is $60. The cost of insurance will definitely be higher at 65 than it was at 55. All right.
Yep.
But what else is happening? In year 3, we leverage year 1. In year 5, we leverage years 1 and 2. Year 7, we leverage years 1, 2, and 3. Year 9, 1, 3, and 1, 2, 3, and 4. Year and so on and so on. So the amount of leverage created in this policy will be so significant, and I can show you in the calculator, would be so significant that it doesn't matter what the expense is. Why? Because your growth in your policy outperforms the expenses. So how about this? Let's say the expenses are $300,000, but if you have 4.2 million available to you as income, does it even matter? So that's where structure is the key here. So the idea is the growth inside the policy outperforms everything else associated with this policy. So even if the cost of insurance is and what it reminds me of, if you were to look at my policy, if I pulled up my policy right now, I want to say at age 120, it shows that my cost of insurance would be like $350,000. Should I be upset about that? Now I get it. I got to live to 120. But my point is the cost of insurance is pretty high. But my leverage inside my policy is somewhere around $29 million. The cash value inside my policy is enough for me to buy cities. Do I really care about that $350,000 in life insurance? So it's all about structure. So while it is going to be higher because you're older, the key is your policy is designed such that none of those details matter because you're able to outperform whatever that cost is. Oh, and now, can this insurance fund itself? That's a beautiful one because I go back to at year 3, we're leveraging everything from year 1. At year 5, we're leveraging everything from years 1 and 2. Year 7, we leverage everything from years 1, 2, and 3. Let's say at year 7, I stop contributing. So in this example, I was contributing 4960. I stopped contributing at year 7. At year 7, I am able to leverage years 1, 2, and 3. So 4960 times 3 is being added into my policy, even though I'm putting in 0. So can this policy fund itself? Absolutely. And that's a great point that you bring up, because show me the whole life policy that can fund itself at year 7. It doesn't exist because the structure isn't there for it to do so. So not only are you able to use the leverage to be able to fund the policy, now let's talk about cash value. Can you leverage the cash value that the policy generates to pay the premiums? You can do that as well. So not only can you put yourself in a position to where you don't have to contribute, you can use the policy to make the premium contributions for you. So there's a few different ways you can go about putting the policy in a position so that it can pay for itself. So that's a great question, and I don't know that it's ever been asked. That's a really good question. Or does he lose the insurance if he can't pay? So let's say at year 7, because of the leverage, he can't pay, like for whatever reason, lost his job, can't make the premium payments. We have the ability to structure this so that the payments are being paid by the leverage. So the policy continues by the premiums being contributed based off the growth inside the policy all on its own. So no, he doesn't lose it. But you still bring up a great point here. What are those situations that could cause your policy I'll call it, be surrendered? Well, you do have to contribute to your policy. So if at year two, for whatever reason, you lost your job and can't contribute, there's no leverage generated for it to be able to sustain itself. Now, we do have the ability to adjust, excuse me, we do have the ability to adjust premiums. So maybe at year two, if he couldn't do the full 49.60, could we adjust the premium amount to where it would be something less than that? Like that could be done. But because there's no leverage created inside the policy, if he was not contributing at year two, the policy would implode. The policy would eat itself, and there's nothing to sustain it. So therefore, the policy would be lost if that was the case. So early on, if the leverage isn't there, we have to make sure we're putting ourselves in a position to be able to make sure we can fund it for the duration. Now, one other piece around that: if you're getting a policy like this, there has to be a reason. Um, if it's infinite banking, that's fine. If it's income, that's fine. But based off those reasons, this is not Bitcoin. This is not a short term action. If you're getting a policy like this and you don't expect to have it for the duration, how about you don't get a policy like this? Matter of fact, don't get a whole life policy either, because this is designed for you to be in it for the long game. This is not a short term investment. This is absolutely a long play. And I get it. Situations happen. You know, loss of jobs, things occur. I'm not saying, I'm not downplaying that. I'm just saying, don't look at this as a get rich quick, because this is secure, uninterrupted compound interest. It takes time. As a matter of fact, I'm going to say probably somewhere between 7 and 10 years before you are seeing sufficient enough income that would allow you to allow this product to sustain itself, I would say. I've seen it earlier, I've seen it later, but I'd say on average, somewhere around 7 years is that threshold. So, all right,
Yeah, it's a lot.
words.
It's a lot of words. We love it. We have a couple questions about the buckets, and could you explain the buckets again? And so Sunday's Father's Day. We won't be here for that day, but we will be back next week, and we're going to start. So this week was more about velocity banking and leverage, and then next week we're going to start another series. And I think to the point of the questions, and some of the questions in the chat are, where can we find easier access to like these snack size videos or concepts? And we are going to start reformatting how we do things so that we can make things a lot easier to find. In that way, you don't have to go hunting through live streams, or if you miss one, you don't feel like you missed a whole bunch of stuff. You can have a library maybe of where to find some of these videos. We've had a hard time keeping up, but now we have some help. So we're going to deploy a whole new strategy in providing the information and support material. So we're looking forward to that. Nathan had a really good idea in the chat to like do a Zoom call about support and feedback around these concepts, so we can kind of understand how to better serve. I love that idea. Maybe we could do a Saturday session on that on Zoom. I like that. So we'll keep moving through the questions. We're almost to the end here. But if you have a question, now is the time to get it in, because we're running out of time. Not that it's their fault, because we're kind of long-winded. But let's move on to Sky. It says, what should you do if you can't get one of these policies and have a poorly designed policy? What should you do?
So if you, for whatever reason, can't qualify, I would ask, maybe you have insurable interest. Meaning maybe you're a dad in a household who can't qualify for a policy like this, but you're married and you have children. Maybe you can leverage your insurability in that household to be able to create policies for them that you would own, that you would still be able to generate income and build and grow and all of those kind of things. But it's not actually on you, it's actually on the people in your household. So there's an option. And then what was the other one?
The next part of the question, what if you have a poorly designed policy? What if you can't qualify? What if you have poorly designed? Should you go back to your agent and ask them to redesign? And what if they are not willing to?
Well, in a lot of cases, you bought life insurance. And so in most cases, the policy you have is the policy that you have. Can you redesign that particular policy? Maybe not. There's a few things that can occur. If it's fairly new, then as far as I'm concerned, you just bought a policy that, hey, congratulations, you didn't pass. So we're going to let that policy lapse, or let that policy end, and we're going to start a brand new policy that's properly structured. Let's say you started a policy that actually has cash value, is doing pretty good, but it's not as efficient as you would like. Well, you have the ability to 1030, I always get this wrong, 1031, 1035. You have the ability to 1035 exchange that cash value from the policy that it's in into another policy. That process is, I'll call it, not very efficient, but you do have the ability to do so. So, in a lot of cases, if you have some policy you've had for a while and it's just not growing as efficiently as you want, but it does have cash value, we can move that cash value penalty free, tax free in the form of a 1035 exchange into the brand new policy that we create. And last but not least, who you get policies from matters. In most cases, you're dealing with salespeople who don't necessarily understand what that structure needs to look like. So going back to them, I am an absolute fan of going back to the person that sold you this policy and one, understanding why it's structured the way it is and making adjustments if it can. But in most cases, 9 times out of 10, it can't. And the guy that sold you that policy sold it to you 9 times out of 10 because that was his idea as to what an efficient policy looks like. So it's kind of one of those situations where it may make more sense just to move on, kind of cut your losses. And again, you're still here, which means you have the ability to make an adjustment. You have the ability to right this wrong and do what makes sense. So, my opinion.
And sometimes this is a teachable moment. So sometimes people have had a call or meeting scheduled with their agent or their financial advisor and then brought and invited Donnell onto the call. So that's happened more times than we can count, where this is not some sort of confrontational call. It's more
No,
of a
absolutely
let's
not.
understand what your options are, and so that you can make an educated decision. Sometimes that means somebody's feeling a little some kind of way about that particular meeting in the beginning. Oftentimes they end up at the very end of the call going, I didn't know these options were available. Certainly wasn't available when we got started. And so, Donnell, please tell me more about what it is that you know so that I can better serve people. And that's really that's it right there. That's the dream right there, is to just start influencing everyone that we can, arming them with this information so that they can go out, each one teach one, and share the same thing. So that's really what, and it's not share the concept of becoming self-directed. It's what that means, the principles behind that. It's about knowing first that you have the option, the ability to take control, right? This is a mindset more than it is just a practice. It's first understanding what that means, what you're capable of, so that when you're out there, you're not counting yourself out and you are looking for opportunities. You are looking for cracks in doors and open doors, right? You understand that when one door closes, it doesn't mean that doors have closed for you. It may mean that you need to go down the hall because another one has opened. But if you're counting yourself out and you're thinking, I have limited options, this is all I can do, I don't understand my leverage, that is a limiting position to be in, right? Armed with information, it opens up a whole new world. And we have seen lives transformed in the matter of 3 to 5 years. People go from having zero retirement plan to completely financially secure, and all they needed was information, access to information. That's our story as well. So we are very familiar with the concept and the power that information can have, not just on one person, on an entire family and lineage to come. So it's keep learning, keep showing up, join us here, subscribe, hit the bell, like if you found value in this video. We appreciate all of your time. Okay, next up we have C. Scott. Does the final number in the monthly available income calculator account for inflation?
It does not. So it is not inflation adjusted, and that's where that sheet that I kind of showed earlier on detailing what's the goal. It's critical that if the objective is to generate enough income to be able to bridge some gap, we have to account for inflation. So what does that mean? Well, here's what I love about the calculator. Even though it doesn't account for inflation, it's still better than any other calculator out there because it allows you to, I'll call it, beat the 4% rule. Here's what I mean. If you go to Vanguard or if you go to Fidelity and you use their retirement calculator, in most cases, their retirement calculator is accounting for 3% inflation. So let's say you've got $1 million in your retirement account and you're ready to start taking income and you put it in the calculator, how much income does that $1 million translate to? Translate to it translates to $40,000 a year, 4%. It's based off the 4% rule. All financial institutions use the 4% rule to calculate the amount of retirement income that you're able to generate. A secure compound interest account is a tax-free dollar amount that you're able to receive. It is not based off the 4% rule. So the fact that it's not based off the 4% rule allows you to generate income of upwards of around, I'll call it 9 to 15%. So just the growth alone in the product, even though it's not accounting for inflation, it's still beating the traditional retirement accounts that is. And so therefore, that dollar amount is still above that inflation or the performance of that inflation rate over time. But I would say if when you're building a product like this, the key is to build that into your goal. Identify what that dollar amount needs to look like in the future based off inflation so that you can be accounting for that as you are structuring your policy to be able to generate income. So, and that's kind of where you and I will work together to kind of identify what that is.
I
Great
really
question.
appreciate that. Crossby was saying, thanks to y'all asking these questions. Some I wanted to know answers to, but I hadn't thought to ask yet. And I think that's the other part is we don't know what we don't know. And therefore, sometimes we don't know what questions to ask either, or that something even existed. So this is really helpful for a lot of people. I also just wanted to give quickly a shout out to some of the people that are in our chat. They're in our chat every single week.
Family.
Yeah, you guys have become like family, but you can see it in the chat that not only have they been showing up, they've been learning. So they're educating inside of the chat as well. And watching this happen is proof. It's proof that this is possible. It's proof that even though this might feel overwhelming right now, the same people who felt overwhelmed in the beginning are now answering almost verbatim the same answers that Donnell would give in the chat. And it's not because the information is hard to replace or because this is some sort of genius. It's just information, and they were able to learn it, and now they're out there, each one teach one. That's amazing to see, and we love this sense of community. We grow farther and faster when we grow together. We truly, truly believe that. But we're looking for proof, right? We're all looking for proof that it's possible. And you can see that it's possible inside of our Facebook group and inside of our chat right here on our channel. We have proven countless times over and over again. And you do it every day. You talk to probably 5 to 10 people a day, somewhere in there, some average in there, sometimes more, I think. Talk to hundreds of people every single month and walk through their situations. The amount of families that we're able to help and the amount of families you'll be able to help because you're learning this information and you'll share it. Talking about who we're sharing it with and who's benefiting is who's in the boat, right? Will it make the boat go faster is a question we ask. It's been known to be the one sentence solution. It's based on a book, and a phenomenal book and a story. We share this sentiment because it is a powerful mantra. It is an anthem for anyone who has their sights on a goal and is determined to achieve it. We are going to spin for a boat here in just a moment. I got to first find the banner. I wish this was easier, but for some reason,
Want me to put it in the chat? I can put it in the chat.
No, please don't. Okay, he's not allowed to put it in the chat anymore. Put hashtag boat in the chat if you haven't won a boat. Would like to give away some boats to people who haven't won yet. So maybe tonight we'll make that a new rule. We have to redo how we're doing, and we have something new, exciting coming. I'm so excited. I cannot wait to launch that. Probably right when we get back from the breaks on next week. So this is why we share this concept and why we give away this boat. Will it make the boat go faster? Here's more about that. In 1998, a British rowing team dreaming of the Olympic gold found themselves ranked 7th. Their focus had always been on the competition day, but they realized the keys to reaching their highest potential were hiding in the decisions that they'd make over those next 2 years.
Faced with 2 obvious choices, continue their current path and expect the same result, or give up. They discovered a third transformative option. They united under one guiding question. Will it make the boat go faster? Every decision, every action was weighed against this mantra. If the answer was yes, they could or would have to do it.
If the answer was no, it was forbidden, non-negotiable. Prior to the competition, this team was doubted and ridiculed, but no one knew what they had been doing. And once they hit the water, they were nearly unrecognizable, achieved their pinnacle, and won the gold. So we ask you,
What is your goal? What are you willing to do to achieve it?
will your story feel unrecognizable, even to you? Are you willing to light your beacon and stay focused, stay committed? Is your story non-negotiable, or are you waiting to find out how you ranked? Your financial future is not a game. You are only competing with yourself and those in the boat with you, your family, and the many generations to come.
Will this make the boat go faster? A sounding alarm, a beacon of clarity amidst turbulent life decisions.
It's not just about speed, but direction, purpose, and an unwavering commitment. Every choice, every sacrifice aimed at the goal.
The first agreement this team made was to become fully self-directed, making their health their wealth, adopting a new perspective on their time and freedom, and the decisions they could fully control to reach their goal.
Will we make your boat go faster? That is our pledge to you. Our mission is to arm you with knowledge, strategies, and insights to ensure that not only you reach the goal, but you do so long before your race is over. Hey! Okay, if you put hashtag boat in the chat, your name will be on this list. And we're gonna spin to win. Let's see it. Who's getting a boat? People are like, they're giving boats. If you haven't been here, here's the boat. It's right. Well, it's right there on the screen. Hey, the Andrea. Congratulations to you if you won. First of all, get in here in the chat. We're gonna spin them one more time. And if you haven't won yet, come back because we want everybody to win a boat. Go to, I wish Justin could pull this up for us so I don't have to find it. Here we go. selfdirected.info/live. If you scroll down the page, you will find a winner button. Hit that button and tell us where to send your boat. All right, let's spin again. We're gonna spin one more time because she's not new, so we're gonna try to get a new person in here. Well, it's not working.
We broke it.
Why isn't it working?
You won too many boats. You done broke the machine.
Oh no! Hold on. No way.
It's all right. Got something coming anyway.
Oh, I don't like that.
Square said change the song.
Yeah, you know that. Gotta. Okay, I don't. We won't. No. It's just the button's not working.
Got a leak in the boat.
I don't like this. They need to fix their things. I'm tired of all this tech stuff. We've been patient enough, but you're taking the boats from people? What kind of madness?
Bruh.
I don't like it.
It's all right. We gave away 2, and when we
Okay.
come back, like I
How about
said, we got
this?
a pretty awesome surprise coming. So
We have an amazing surprise. We are putting together something that is really exciting, and I'm thrilled about it. So how would we do this? We're going to pick somebody random. Pick somebody random in the chat that put hashtag boat. Do you want to pick somebody?
someone who put hashtag boat. Yep, I already got him. Antonio.
Okay. Antonio. Woo!
Congratulations, Antonio. Go to self-directed.info/live. You'll see the I'll call it the area where it talks about did you win a boat? Put your information in, and we will get it over to you.
Okay. Also, be patient with us because we kind of made the USPS a little upset with how many boats we were sending. They had to manually sort them. They're like, "What do you guys think you're special? You're gonna have to pay more for this." So they said, "No." Matter of
Shut
fact,
down the
now,
post office.
yeah, now you're just not gonna have to pay more for this. Now, we're gonna need you to package these differently. So they've been all picky about things. Sorry to anybody who works at the post office. We know it's not you doing it. We live in an area where it's like a bunch of free range Karens, and that's probably them at the post office, just not wanting to let us be great. So we're having to package them differently, which is why we were like, why would we do that? Why wouldn't we just make a whole new thing and just make what we give away even better? Why don't we just do that? Why don't we upgrade? Okay, so yeah, but then if I do it through a company, like an automated thing, I can't put the little hand personal notes in there, and I'm excited. I like doing that. So I don't know. We got to figure this out. There's probably a better way. Our way is probably not the best way, but we're doing it. We found a way for now, anyway. We have one question that I think is pretty good, and that can be our segue into what we're going to talk about when we get back. Elizabeth says, "What happens?" Let me find her comment. Dang it. Where is she at? Okay. Elizabeth says, if the market falls, do I also lose money in my insurance?
Yeah, I think the beauty around that is there's this thing built in it called a 0% floor. So regardless of what happens with the market, there's a contractual guarantee from the life insurance company, not from me, but from the life insurance company. And let's talk about guarantees real quick. Inside a whole life policy, what's so awesome about a whole life policy is the guaranteed 4% growth, guaranteed growth. Awesome. Well, inside of a properly structured IUL, there's no guarantee on the growth. The guarantee is on the fact that you can't lose money due to market risk. So the dollar amount that you've contributed, the growth on that dollar amount over time is protected by what's called a 0% floor. And so even if the market crashed, you can't lose what you made yesterday. Now, the growth on what happened today may not happen, meaning the concept of how the money grows inside of a properly structured IUL is through a call option, like a whole lot of details that I'm not going to get into right now. I will cover, just not right now. But the point is, your growth, the money that you've made on the money that you've contributed, is all protected by that 0% floor and cannot be lost due to market risk. So I'll leave it at that.
They're asking what sound does free range Karens make? And I'm just going to say, I don't really know, but I know that down at the USPS post office, they were pretty much like, never gonna get it, never gonna get it. So that was the sound they were making about our boats. And they were like, no, find somebody else to do it. We're not going to do it for you anymore. So we had to re-strategize because we're not going to let that stop us. We don't let tech issues or packaging issues stop us.
Keep it
We
moving.
push. That's right. We ask, how can we get this boat going, and how can we get it going faster? Part of that is just being here with you guys and hearing your feedback and understanding how we can better serve and how we can explain these things. Sometimes it means we're doing this 3 and 4 times the same concepts, right? And that's okay with us. We don't mind. So we love your feedback. We love your comments. We really do. And it helps us to serve better. I don't know how else to say it. We know that time is the most valuable asset that we all have, and we value that you're spending it here with us. Next week, we'll be back here to talk about the innards, the components of a SKIA and how it grows and how you borrow from it and what all of that looks like, so that we can break those concepts down to answer some of those questions like what Elizabeth just asked. Do I lose money? What happens when this process, like what's inside? How do these gears turn? We're going to show you inside of what that looks like. We're going to do it again. And hopefully what we're doing is we're creating a kind of like a beginner's series of small snack size videos and doing this in a better way so it's more efficient for you all to consume. We really appreciate your time here with us, and we hope that all the fathers this weekend have a wonderful.
So
No.
I believe Father's Day is June 16th.
So, okay. Well, then it's June 16th. I don't make the rules.
Every day is Father's Day.
Every day
So
is
still.
Father's Day around here. Yeah. Well, we can have that conversation on what we do about holidays nowadays. We don't wait to celebrate anymore. So we don't even pay attention to these days anymore. Just because it doesn't matter. Every day is Mother's Day, every day is Father's Day, every day is somebody's birthday. We don't wait anymore because time is the most valuable asset that we have, and there's no point in waiting, right? There's no point in accumulating appreciation for people. We just decided we're done with that. We're going to do it every day whenever we want to, just because, and make sure that every day feels special. That's all I have to add for today. Anything else you like? Any final notes? So then we'll be here back on Sunday then.
Yep, we'll be here on Sunday and breaking down. I think we're still in a position to be able to do what we kind of discussed, and that
Yeah.
is break down some of the how money grows inside of a product like this. So we'll dig into some of those details on Sunday.
Yeah. Let's do that. Let's get in here on Sunday. Get back in here on Sunday. False alarm. Yeah. Father's Day. Rob said least celebrated holiday, Father's Day. I don't know. You know what? Let's change that. Let's stream up on Father's Day.
Right,
Just
not a
kidding.
problem.
Stream it from the
Not a problem.
grill. All right. Thank you guys so much for spending time with us. We will be back here on Sunday. Until then. Hey, before you go, we want to remind you that becoming fully self-directed means gaining complete control over your wealth, time, and freedom. It's not just an idea. It's a framework, a mindset, and the power to make informed decisions to secure your future. Being here means you're taking those steps, and we want to thank you for allowing us to guide you. We believe that we grow farther and faster when we grow together. So tune in next time and
Good,
tell a
don't
friend.
stop it.
No, I did. I'm stopping it because you're right. I didn't. I told you backstage what my issue is right now. Okay. We didn't do the outro. That's like the first time ever we've not done it. Okay. If you don't come from a wealthy family,
You can make sure a wealthy family comes from you.
so stay tuned,
Stay protected.
stay focused.
Stay connected.
I'm Angelique,
And I'm Donnell.
and our goal is to help you.
It's self-directed.
And to do that, we have a ton of free resources. So I'm going to roll it again and show you how to get them. And we'll see you back here on Sunday. Thanks so much for tuning in, guys. Bye. Hey, before you go, we want to remind you that becoming fully self-directed means gaining complete control over your wealth, time, and freedom. It's not just an idea. It's a framework, a mindset, and the power to make informed decisions to secure your future. Being here means you're taking those steps, and we want to thank you for allowing us to guide you. We believe that we grow farther and faster when we grow together. So tune in next time and tell a friend to tell a friend. We've helped thousands of people just like you start their journey to financial freedom. And if they can do it, you can too. And if you're ready to learn more, we got you. Get a head start by grabbing these 2 free books. But how do they get them, Donnell?
Head over to my website where you'll have access to a few things. A ton of free resources, case studies, and over 100 5-star reviews from people just like you. And in 15 minutes, we can explore what's possible for you. So don't wait.
Invest in what you want, when you want.
But first, let us help you get
Get self-directed.